The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome. To day 5 of Training Camp Confidential. Your man Louie T's got you covered for all things Washington Commanders training camp. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, a number of topics to get to today. Just had the Courtland Sutton deal come down, and that's kind of thrown a monkey wrench, so to speak, in the Terry McLaurin potential negotiations. We're going to start with that. That's more or less house cleaning for today, as we always start with house cleaning when we're talking about Commanders in the training camp. So let's dive into that piece of information. So about 2 hours ago, roughly, Courtland Sutton received an extension. This was a process that had been months and months in advance. Courtland Sutton showed up in good faith to all of the OTAs, to the mandatory minis, to training camp without a fuss. The Broncos told him up front, we're going to take care of you. He showed up in good faith, trusting that the organization would do right by him. And that's what happened. 4 years, $92 million extension, $23 million per year for this extension. Courtland Sutton, basically the same age as Terry McLaurin. We're talking a number of days in between their ages. So Courtland Sutton was the previous draft class before Terry McLaurin. So he came into the league in 2018, McLaurin the following year. But they're both 29, going on 30 years old. This is probably along the lines of where the Commanders are from a financial compensation standpoint. This is not a good look for Terry McLaurin and his agent, especially if you couple what was said by Adam Schefter. Now, again, I'll take anything that's said by any insider right now when it comes to this team with a grain of salt, because they don't know anything. But I find it hard to believe that Terry would go on a Eastern Motors platform, right? He's shooting a commercial and decides to have a press conference, which all the media members knew about, and talk about how he feels disrespected over crumbs, essentially. He's not going and doing that over $1, $2, or $3 million apart from the team. He's doing that because the team is like, yeah, we're at $24 million a year, and he's at $34 million. And we're talking $8, $9, $10 million per year apart on a deal. That's significant money, right? So we're not talking about, well, the team's at 27 and Terry's at 33, right? Although that's $6 million per, that's 18 total. That could be significant money. I think we're talking about a wide gap here. And Schefter made it seem as if you don't know what I'm referring to, he had an interview today with Pat McAfee on his show. It's circulating on social media. Go check it out. Again, take it with a grain of salt, because as we know, anytime you're talking about something coming out of Washington right now, nobody really has a clue. Everybody's speculating. Everybody's telling you what they think. They don't know. However, I think Terry, in this particular instance, thinks his value is north of DK Metcalf, which is what Adam Schefter said. But he said significantly more than DK, which I find very hard to believe, because I have an issue with that. I've said all along, DK Metcalf's deal threw a monkey wrench in the Terry negotiation, because it set a bar. It set the floor for where Terry was like, okay, this is what I want. Had DK come in at 31, Terry would have been like, all right, cool, I'll take 31 and a half. DK got 33, and so Terry's like, no, I need 33 then and some change, right? This is even worse for Terry, though. The DK number made it tough on the team. This makes it tough on Terry. Now, I will say this. I don't for 1 second believe that Terry McLaurin should get anything remotely close to what Courtland Sutton got. They're not the same player. They're not even remotely close. Terry's the better player, way more consistent. He's played more football games in terms of health. Courtland Sutton has been in the league a year longer, played in an extra game, and still has 1,000 yards less than Terry. Terry's consistency, Terry's ability to produce without consistency around him. Not that Courtland Sutton's had great quarterback play around him either. All right. Both of them can yell from the mountaintops that they haven't really played with any quarterbacks of note, and that would be accurate. However, let's take a look at the numbers since, everyone wants to now throw this as the deal that's going to kind of set the barometer for Terry. I vastly disagree with that, by the way. So Sutton, again, came into the league in 2018, so should theoretically have at least 16 more games under his belt, but he missed almost an entire season due to an ACL. So that's something else you have to factor into the Courtland Sutton situation, that he is turning 30, had a major injury in his career, and I don't think Courtland Sutton's going to get that much better. He's got himself a quarterback in Bo Nix. That helps, but Courtland Sutton is what he is at this point of his career. $23 million a year for Courtland Sutton is good money, and he's thrilled to get it. That's not the way Terry McLaurin views his situation. So, Terry, 97 games, Courtland Sutton, 98. AV, 43 for Courtland Sutton, 53 for Terry McLaurin. So average, right? 379 receptions for Courtland Sutton, 460 for Terry McLaurin over the life of their careers. 5,340 yards from Sutton, 6,379. So over 1,000 more yards for Terry McLaurin throughout his career. 14.1 yards per reception for Sutton. Terry 13.9. So they're basically right in the same ballpark neighborhood there. Touchdown receptions, Terry eclipses him once again. Sutton only has one season now. Terry only has one as well. And at 13 did a really big number, right? Last year did some serious damage and added a lot to his total this past year, but has more touchdown receptions than Courtland Sutton does in his career, even though he's played one less season. Rush attempts, again, neither one of these guys are someone you want to give the football to, so you can skip over that. Terry's been a Pro Bowler twice, including this past season, right? Courtland Sutton's been a Pro Bowler once. That was his second year in the league. His best season of his career was his second year. He's not getting better now. He had his second 1,000-yard season this past year, which is why Denver felt the need to go ahead and pay him. And he's a good football player. And he is the number one receiver for that group. They got a lot of talented receivers in Denver, and he leads that group. So there is value in locking up Courtland Sutton, but Courtland Sutton probably won't make another Pro Bowl the remainder of his career. He's done with the Pro Bowls. I don't see him as an all-pro player. Terry just was an all-pro this past year. And again, the reason, if I'm Terry, I'm his agent, I'm saying that this deal has no bearing nor impact on what my client needs, is because they're two separate players. My guy's arrow is trending upwards. Courtland Sutton, at best, his arrow slightly up maybe, but to me, his arrow is just going sideways, right? Not a lot of upward trajectory with Courtland Sutton. My guy just came off of statistically one of the best years of his career in Terry McLaurin. You could say the same for Sutton, right? He's only had 2,000-yard seasons in his career. I mean, what are we talking about here? Terry's working on 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons, okay? Their numbers were almost identical. They were very similar last year. I think Sutton had 81 catches, McLaurin like 79. I think Sutton had like 1,083 yards, Terry like 1,091, something to that effect. either way, it was very similar. The big difference there, I think Sutton had 8 touchdowns last year. McLaurin had 13 touchdowns a season ago. And as I've mentioned, McLaurin's trajectory is pointing upwards, whereas Sutton's, I don't think there's as much juice there worth squeezing, which is why the 23 for him is good. A guy that's got an ACL on his Carfax report, a guy that's only had 2,000-yard receiving seasons, a guy that's never been an all-pro in this league. There's a lot of things there that don't necessarily move the needle if you are doing a deal for Courtland Sutton. Meanwhile, if you're Terry McLaurin, my guy's working on 5 straight years of 1,000 yards receiving. My guy's coming off of an all-pro season in which he was second in the league in receiving touchdowns. You're playing with a quarterback, and you're going into the first year of your career in which you're going to have the same starting quarterback that you had the year before, knock on wood. And so there's so many things you could say here about Terry McLaurin that, you know, if you're Terry and his agent, then you're like, this Courtland Sutton deal shouldn't matter. But the Commanders aren't trying to hear that shit. They see the age. They look at Courtland Sutton's deal and they're saying, hey, this is, you know, not necessarily $23 million, because this is what you got to take into consideration. For those of you out there screaming, this is what Terry should be getting, like, which is the stupidest take ever. Because if I'm Terry McLaurin, I'd rather not do a deal. I'd rather not do a deal. You know why? Because the Commanders are just going to franchise tag you next year. That's why, right? And if they're not, somebody, trust me when I tell you, if you're stupid enough to think somebody won't pay Terry McLaurin $30 million a year next year, you're out of your damn mind. The Patriots tried to give Chris Godwin over $30 million this year. What are you talking about? Okay. Chris Godwin's coming off of an ACL tear. They don't even know how healthy he is, and he's getting older, and they try to give him $30 million a year. So if you think somebody's not going to give Terry McLaurin $30 million per year on the open market, you're smoking something. So again, chill with all the, well, Terry wouldn't get this on the open market. Bullshit. And I'll say something else. When it comes to Terry, he has the leverage from this perspective. If I'm doing a deal with the Commanders, and we've talked about this, this was in the article written by Joel Corey. We talked about it on this show. He did an interview with John Kyman. He talked about it. The starting point for Terry is somewhere in that $30.5 to $31.2 million range, because that's more likely than not where his franchise tag would be next season, considering the increase in the cap. If Terry makes a Pro Bowl, all of these things will increase his number, and it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of north of 30, maybe slightly over 31. So if I'm Terry, I'm not doing a deal for anything less than that, because I know I get that fully guaranteed next season on a franchise tag. Of course, you want stability, and you want the ability to say, I'm taken care of for the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? You want that $60, $70 million guaranteed. Yes, that is what you're looking for. Security. But if you can't get it, the next best thing is to go out, do the thing that you've always done, which is remain healthy. And again, that's not, your decision to make, but you go out, do the thing that you've done, which is stay healthy, play good football. They're going to have no choice but to franchise tag. You're going to make over $30 million next year. So if I'm Terry, I'm not signing a deal. It's the equivalent of a team basically saying, if you can't give me something better than a 4th round pick for a player that I know if I let him walk in free agency, I'm going to get a compensatory 3rd round pick more likely than not for his services. Now I'm going to have to wait an additional offseason to get it, but I know what the value is here, and I'm willing to wait if you're not going to give me what I'm asking for. The value is in me just holding on to this player, letting him play out the remainder of this season instead of trading him before the trade deadline and seeing if this guy can help me win and win big. And then if he walks in free agency, I'll get my 3rd round compensatory pick a couple years down the road. Not going to give him away to you because I want instant gratification. If I'm Terry, I'm not going to sign a deal because I want instant gratification and security. If I want the most money, this is the last big bag that Terry's probably going to get his hands on. He's aware of that. So there's no hometown discount, Terry's being greedy, all that bullshit. To hell with what you're talking about. This is the last chance this man's going to be able to take the biggest bite of the apple that he can. So he's going to try and do that. And he should, by the way, try and do that. And if the team thinks that this Courtland Sutton deal is anywhere remotely close to what Terry's worth, if I'm Terry, hey, no worries. I'm not signing anything. Unless you start talking with some sense down the road, I'll just play out my last year, force you to franchise tag me next year. I'll make over $30 million, which you don't want to do against your cap. But again, that's why he has a little bit of leverage here. Not a ton, not a lot, because technically he's under contract. But if the Commanders value Terry McLaurin, want him back in the fold next year, gonna have to franchise tag him, just like the Bengals had to do with T. Higgins. It's gonna cost them. May cost you a lot. It won't cost you a little. Either way, it's gonna cost you. So the Courtland Sutton deal is interesting. It's a good deal for Courtland Sutton. That's not a good deal for Terry McLaurin. The two are not the same, as you can see with the numbers that are in front of you. The two are not the same. So, yeah, it's not a great look for Terry. This deal for Courtland Sutton is not a good deal. It's not a good look for him and his agent, Buddy Baker. It's also not a good look that Adam Schefter is saying that Terry McLaurin wants significantly more money than the DK Metcalf deal. That can't be accurate. Because again, somebody, I can't stress this enough. In negotiations, there's got to be give and take. Like one side's got to be willing to give, the other side's got to be willing to give. And if you seriously want to get something done, if there's a meeting point somewhere in the middle, each side has to make concessions. I don't know where Terry's head is on this. I don't know where the team's head is on this, but both of them need to come together and get a deal done. And the way that everyone keeps talking, it seems like they're at an impasse and there's no progress being made. It feels like we're still in the middle of May and there's nothing going on and there's still time. And there is, technically speaking. I just don't like that we continue to have these conversations and he's not in camp. Like, I'm not one of those people that feel like, oh, he's fine. He's got time on task, as DQ likes to talk about, and they've got banked reps. No, Jayden's only been here for 1 year. This isn't Harrison, Manning to Harrison for 8-9 years straight. So if he sits out a year, we're, training camp, we're fine. These guys got reps together last year. Sure, they could use more work. So, I'd like to see something done sooner rather than later, but Schefter's like, they're not close. John Combs like, they're not close. Everybody that talks about it says they're not close. Terry doesn't seem like they're close. Just seems like a rough situation, but I digress. We move forward. That's the house cleaning for today. So today's practice, as you know, pads on. First practice padded of training camp. Not the last, most certainly, but an exciting day nonetheless. It feels like now the real evaluations can begin, specifically in the trenches. So that was exciting today. Vet rest day for Laramie Tunzel, Von Miller, Zach Ertz, Cleveland Farrell, and Marshawn Lattimore. So quite a few veterans having the day off today. Some red zone work, a lot of short yardage and run game install today with the pads being on. I can tell you just as a quick overview, Jayden Daniels was sharp today, much sharper than the previous 2 practice days. So he had a nice bounce back day today. Unfortunately, the run game was not something to write home about. Not necessarily surprised by that because There was no Laramie Tunsil, one. So that means Wiley goes to left tackle. Josh Connolly Jr., the rookie, goes to right tackle. And look, this is already not a great run blocking offensive line to begin with, even if Laramie Tunsil's in the game. But with him out of the lineup today, that most certainly does not help this offensive line. Connolly is not a run blocking demon either himself. He's more of a pass protection guy. And the reports are right now that he's sort of struggling in that department, but again, I'm not going to put too much stock into that right now because it's early and the pads have just gone on. So I think what we'll really get a good sense of what Josh Connolly Jr. is up to when we see the Patriots here in about a week in those joint practices. That's when we'll really get a sense of how they feel about him. Right now, if we had a game on Sunday, Josh Connolly Jr. would be your backup right tackle. And Andrew Wiley would be starting at right tackle. I don't think he's made up a ton of ground yet. Like this time last year, we were talking about Brandon Coleman really impressing and starting to take over more of the first team reps. I'm not getting that sense right now with Josh Connolly Jr., right? So, and again, I just want you to keep this in mind. If he can't go this year, we're fine. Like, I don't want to rush him if he's not ready. Again, he's so young. There's a lot of time for him to mature and get to where he needs to be. I'm not tripping if he can't go. Look at that as an investment, into this offensive line, into the future. Next year, if he can't go this year, right out of the gates, and let's say 8-9 weeks in, he's ready. Shoot, throw him out there. I'm ready, right? So we'll see what it looks like. It's early. No need for panic. But the offensive line in the run game, not hitting today. And you know what? That's actually a good thing for the defense. Like, I expect us to stop the run at a very high level this year. I really do. So, no Laramie Tunsil out there. Good. Kick their ass up front in the run game. Kick their ass in the run game. And that they did. That they did. So, Jayden had a really sharp day, had a touchdown to Deebo Samuel in red zone early on in that process, back corner of the end zone, a dime that he put there between two defenders, and Mikey Sainristil, and I want to say it was Quan Martin, if I'm not mistaken. So Jayden was razor sharp, hit Ben Sennett over the middle of the field with no Zach Ertz out there. Sennett got a little bit more work. Bates also had a nice seam ball catch from Jayden. So it was a really good day for Jayden Daniels. The loudest thud of the day came from Bill and Tyler Owens. Bill makes, and the clip of this is on the Commanders' X page where he jump cuts through the host, a beautiful run. It's what I've talked about Bill being able to do, his ability to maneuver in tight spaces, right? In the crowd, so to speak, make guys miss in a phone booth. So he's jump cutting, and we haven't seen a back do that here in a very long time, right? So he's jump cutting in the hole, right? Gets through to the second wave of defenders, breaks through an arm tackle, and then as he gets to the very end, Tyler Owens is waiting on him, and boom, lowers his shoulder, and Bill lowers his. They collide. Bill kind of goes backwards. Now, they're not taking each other to the ground. They're not looking to wrap and take guys down. So don't know if that would have resulted in a broken tackle or if he would have gotten speared there, because that was a pretty good, lick that Tyler Owens put on him. But he gets hit, kind of falls backwards temporarily, keeps his balance, and keeps running, protects the football at the end. It's those clips, those series of clips that you see on my thumbnail came from that particular play. But it talks about his contact balance, his physicality. Again, that was the loudest thump of the day. So pads are on. The run game is something that they're going to continue to work with. A little rust today, right? Wasn't their best. I'm looking for vast improvements. Once Laramie's back out there, you probably move Wiley back to right tackle and get him out there, kind of get that line back in some sort of order, and then you see if the line can have a better day than it did today. Connolly did have a good blitz pickup with Bobby Wagner that allowed Jayden Daniels to hit Ben Sinnott over the middle of the football field. So, there were some good from this offensive line today, but ultimately this was another good day for the defense as the receivers continue to struggle. Now, one guy that has stood out here of late is Jalen Lane, the 4th-round pick out of Virginia Tech. Obviously, he had the catch, I think, of camp thus far over 2 defenders in the corner of the end zone on an absolute dot by Jayden Daniels, the same kind of dot that he threw to Deebo today. But that one was crazy and insane, over 2 guys' outstretched arms, and then Jalen Lane back of the corner of the end zone. We've all seen that video. He's been stepping up in the absence of Noah Brown, who was limited today, did practice but limited today, and obviously no Terry McLaurin still. And then in addition to that, we heard that both Deebo Samuel and Jalen Lane both were returning kicks. There was a Austin Eckler, Deebo Samuel kickoff return set up back there, which if you're going off of what Austin Eckler did last year and what Deebo has done over the life of his career, that's a dangerous group back there. I feel comfortable with either one of them returning the ball on a kickoff, right? So, and this kickoff is more so made for Deebo, right? So really comfortable with both of them being back there, really comfortable if it's, and I think it's ultimately going to be Jalen Lane back there. If they want to spice things up every now and again, they can throw Deebo back there if they want to get him a touch. But ultimately, I think Jalen Lane's going to be back there along with Eck on kickoffs, and Lane's going to be your primary punt returner. But they have options. Much like I've said throughout all of the positions on this team, it feels like this year, unlike last, where the options were sparse, we got options everywhere, and that includes kickoff return, right? Now, punt return is still something a bit questionable. If there's no Jalen Lane, who you putting back there to return punts? I mean, that's a great question. I don't know if they really have an answer for us right now, but there are other guys who have done it. Like we talked about KJ Osborne doing it in college. So there's other guys that if, he's around on the roster, et cetera, you can put him back there. But let's hope we don't have to explore those options this year. So day 5 at the podium, you had DQ speak, Trey Amos, the rookie corner, and Deebo Samuel all speak today. So let's talk about what DQ had to say. He gave a shout out to the fans to start off his presser. Said the fans brought energy yesterday. They also were in attendance today. Today was season ticket holder day, the season ticket ultra day. So the fans were out there again, and they were out there in droves again today. So shout out to the fans that were out there. Shout out to OGJ Command for blessing the mob with 3 tickets to practice today. Shout out to him. He talked about Deebo's energy and versatility, and he's mentioned Deebo's energy before, and talking about Deebo and what value he brings to the table. He said he didn't know that Deebo had, that much juice, that much energy, that much zest and life for the game, but he loves football, you can tell. But he also talked about his versatility and the challenge of finding ways to get Deebo touches. He said that's the fun part of, Deebo Samuel, having him on your team, is where can you put him in spots where he's at his best. He's like, you saw him in San Francisco run a lot of those deep over routes, get it over the middle of the field, catch and run. He's caught a lot of shallow crosses, but how can they get him involved, in other ways to maximize him, whether it's in the returns game as a kickoff return man, whether it's handing it to him, throwing it to him out of the backfield, lining him up out wide, lining him up in the slot, jet sweeps, all that good stuff. They want to find all creative ways to get him involved. And he talked about that in his versatility. He talked about being locked in with the pads going on to the line of scrimmage in particular, which that's right? Both sides. And then he talked about special teams. This is the first time they've really lined up in kickoff return, kick coverage, and that sort of thing, punt return, punt coverage. This is the first time they really lined up to take part in that. So he said those are the two, biggest things that he's going to be looking at as we get really heavy into the padded practices. He talked about the running backs, playing with pads. He said more so with the running backs, it's going to be a preseason thing where you see, the pads make a difference. He's like, I don't want to discount what we're doing in these thud periods where, guys are lowering the shoulder. You get to see that be a little bit more a part of it than when there were no pads on. But he's like, you're still not going to the ground. You're still not seeing if a guy would have been taken down or if he would have kept his feet, similar to the Tyler Owens play that I talked about, where those two collided for the loudest thud of practice today. You don't know if that would have been a tackle or Bill would have done exactly what he did, which is bounce off of that hit and kept his feet and been off to the races. So he said there'll be more of an emphasis once you get to the preseason. But right now, you like to see them be physical. You like to see them run through the arm tackles. You like to see guys using their shoulders, proper form, all that good stuff. But shouldn't be going to the ground right now. He was asked about Trey Amos and what was the thing that he liked about him the most, and what he saw in him. And he said the thing he loves about Trey Amos is his patience. I talked about his patience the other day. I've talked about his patience in the pre-draft process. When you watch his film coming out of Ole Miss, one of the things that stuck out was his ability to mirror guys without putting his hands on them, to not overcommit, right? A lot of times receivers try to set you up with their first initial movement. They give you all of this off the line of scrimmage and then go out here hoping that you turn your shoulders, look to open up, and then they cross you over and now you're beat, right? Now they've crossed you over, gotten in front of you, and now they're catching a slant and you're left in the dust. But if you remain patient, you stay square, they do all that shit, they go to open up. If you trust your technique, you trust your ability, that's a stab, right? You're still in phase. You're right where you need to be. He crosses over. Now you open up your hips. And now you run with him. And now you're in a position for a PBU, possibly cut it off and pick it off, depending on where the ball's put. So he's got that ability to just stay square, let you do all of that, right? All of that loud, pitter-patting, shoulder faking. I call it dandruff, head and shoulder faking. And then once you declare where you're going, now I'm with you. Now I'm going to turn my shoulders. Now I'm going to run. And he's very patient. DQ said Jason Simmons has worked with him, and they're making some beautiful music together. He talked about special teams and who stood out to him. He said Revo stood out to him. McGee is a guy that he's anxious to see on special teams. And then he talked about a couple of tight ends, and Lawrence Cager and Tyree Jackson is two guys at the tight end position that he wants to see how they fit on special teams as well. DQ talked about best on best, right? Best versus best on offense and defense. And he said the thing that I said a couple of days ago when the offense was dominated by the defense. You don't want the offense dominating the defense every day, because that means the defense is not very good. We've seen the defense getting the best of the offense thus far, and that doesn't mean the offense isn't very good, because we feel like with Jayden Daniels under center, I don't really give a shit what your defense is. We got a shot. As long as guys aren't turning the damn ball over like they did in the NFC Championship game, we got a shot with 5. And so we know what this offense is capable of, and especially once Terry gets back out there and we get into a rhythm and a flow, we'll be fine. But it's good to see the defense making plays. And same thing when you get into individual battles, whether it's the D-line versus the O-line, it's a one-on-one tackle versus an edge, a guard versus a defensive tackle. You want to see if it's best on best, both guys getting the best of one another. You want to see both sides of the football getting the best of one another. And so he's like, you're seeing some of that right now. He was asked about talking to coaches from other sports, executives from other sports, and what does that do for him. And he just talked about being a listener, a guy that likes to learn and seeing how in other sports they do it. What can he extrapolate from that and add to his game as a coach? So, DQ definitely learned from the school of Pete Carroll, who is always constantly learning something. So you can see that kind of blending into what he is as a coach. He talked about Deron Payne, and he said this numerous times about Deron during the course of this offseason. He said, quote, Deron is on it this offseason and into training camp. He said, it's been a blast coaching Deron this year. He's locked in. He said, and he's the guy that we don't have to say, anything to him, or, Deron doesn't say much, but he's a man of, plenty of action. And he said that, Deron is the leader of that defensive line group right now. So they asked DQ about Terry's ankle. And, is there any update on the contract? And DQ said no update on the contract. And then he went into this long-winded spiel about the PUP list and what Terry would be partaking in here and there. And I was just like, rolled my eyes like, okay, guy, whatever. I respect it. I respect it. I know what it's about. Josh Connolly Jr. and Wiley splitting reps. He talked about that. That's going to be something that continues throughout camp and into the preseason. I really feel like there's a true evaluation that has to take place there, because I'm not sure if Josh Connolly Jr. is going to win the job like Brandon Coleman did last year. That's the goal. That's the way they envision this going, but they're not going to force him out there if he's not ready. So he's going to have to earn it. Right now, Wiley, to me, is your starting right tackle until otherwise notified. Connolly Jr. has to continue to put in the work. And I still expect him to be our day one starter. I do expect that, but he's going to have to put in the work. This was a weird question asked by David Aldridge. He asked, what was the conversation like with Fentrell Cypress, who got released? I want to say it was 2 days ago, I guess, when Terry showed up. They had to make a move to put Terry on the roster. So they moved on from Fentrell Cypress, and I think they did it with an injury designation. I'm not sure, but DQ made it seem like he was a little banged up, so it made it easy, similar to the Michael Wiley situation. But it was sort of a weird question, but DQ did his best to answer it. Then they finished up by asking about the wide receiver room, and is this, with Terry in the fold, is this a championship caliber wide receiver group? And DQ's like, yeah, I wouldn't go that far in terms of just using the C word. I would just say that we're really pleased with this group. We really like what they brought to the table. We like what the guys have, done in terms of trying to take advantage of opportunities presented with no Terry and no Noah for most of camp to this point. So he brought up Jalen Lane as a name. I brought him up earlier and said that this guy's impressing the staff. He also brought up KJ Osborne and said that's a guy that was here last year, got here late. Kind of hard to assess him, getting thrown into the fray the way that he did last year. But he also said that he really thinks KJ has a chance to play really well this year. So we'll see what happens with that. Speaking of which, I've been one that says, you could cut Clelin Ferrell. You're not giving Clelin Ferrell vet rest days if he's on the bubble. So I don't know if you guys even felt like Clelin Ferrell was never not a lock. But he's making the roster, basically. If you're giving him vet rest days, he's going to be here. So, which I knew he wasn't going anywhere either. Trey Amos had a quick 5-minute. Both he and Deebo had over 5-minute pressers. He talked about earning the respect of his teammates, like wanting to go out there, prove it every day, single day, prove to them that he's worthy of the second round selection that they made with him, and then just showing that he's capable of being out there and playing with them and holding up his end of the bargain and being accountable. He talked about accountability at least 2 or 3 times in this press conference. He talked about his learning from Marshawn Lattimore and how much input that he's gotten from him, and how that entire room has been very helpful and beneficial to him. So he talked about Marshawn and taking some of the things from his game and implementing it into his. And so, like I said, anytime you got veterans that are willing to give the game to the young fellas, it's a great thing. He talked about his relationship and standard with Coach Witt. So the relationship is one of, a young guy coming in wanting to impress his coach, his coordinator. And he said the standard that Joe Witt Jr. has set up for him is to not let anybody catch the ball on him, which, again, duh. But he's fully capable. Fully capable. He talked about his approach to the game, and he said that he is a patient player, a guy that he feels like can play all over the field, can play man, can play zone, play press, can play off, press and bail. He just said taking it one day at a time, getting better. He talked about being in the first day of pads. He said it felt good to use your shoulder a little bit more, right? To be able to lower your shoulder. I had been out of the game for a little while, so I think he's getting reacclimated to that. And then he talked about his transition from the NFL to the college game, from the college game to the NFL. And he's like, it's a significant deal, but it's not like a massive gap in talent. I guess he feels like I came from the SEC, so I feel like I'm pretty confident in what I can do and what I can bring. So, which I get. Deebo Samuel talked about, I got a lot left in the tank. That was his quote. I got a lot left in the tank, which is what you say when you're about to turn 30. You're supposed to say that. What you supposed to say? The opposite? He was asked about playing with Jayden multiple times. I know he was getting tired of answering this question. He's like, playing with Jayden is fun, and playing in Cliff's offense is a blast as well. He said that the rookies that are here in Washington seem to be ahead of the game. And we only drafted 5. So, and the vast majority of them seem to be pretty smart. So we'll see. Deebo then talked about his pneumonia episode from last year. I found this fascinating. Talked about waking up, early the day of the game with a gnarly cough. And he just thought, oh, might be dehydrated. So, took some fluids. I think he said he started I think he said he called his trainer and he started taking, fluids, and thought it might have been like a sugar deficit or something. So he ate, got a massage, and then he went into the building. Said he was in warm-ups and he was having trouble breathing, but just still thought he was struggling with like dehydration or something. So he said he got through like the first 3 or 4 plays, and he was like, if I would have ran another play, I don't know what would have happened. It was easy. Then they did the x-ray and they saw that he had an inflamed chest, and he was like, that's how he found out he had pneumonia. It was crazy. So hopefully he's good this year. He talked about the significance. I was actually surprised that he admitted that this is a significant season for him. Normally guys in that position don't like to admit that there's a lot riding on the upcoming season. They usually try to downplay it. Like, I'm going to just put one foot in front of the other, yada, 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 yada. Don't want to put too much into this one season. Just want to stack good days, something like that. He's like, I understand the importance of the upcoming season. So good for him on that. Today, Deebo Samuel talked about the first padded practice and how it felt good to have a little bit of contact. He wasn't like yearning for it, but he did talk about the first day of padded practice and how that usually sets the tone. So
He talked about his versatility, all the things he can do, kind of laid that out for you already. He said he was really impressed by the amount of fans that were out there on day one of the fans being there, which was Sunday, training camp day number 4. And then he got back out there today. Oh, excuse me. Not as many fans probably as yesterday, but still quite a turnout indeed. So he said the fans out here are a lot more live than what he had initially begun to think. He talked about his chemistry with Jayden and how it's continuing to grow. I think that's something that we're going to continue to see grow even more so once Terry gets back in the fold. But with Terry being out, he's your primary guy at the receiver position. So he's continuing to get work with Jayden and hopefully strengthen that bond and relationship that those two have. And then he talked about his energy. He said he's always played football with a sense of energy. He's always been a guy that's not, sort of low key, not going to be rah-rah guy giving speeches, et cetera, but he's always a guy that is intense. And, this group loves guys that are wired in that way. So that was the last piece of information from today's press conferences. Let's get to the comment section. Got a couple comments here, and then we will get out of here. Low Key Los, thank you for being a member for 39 months. Salute, who writes, for me, I wouldn't pay Terry anything over 34 mil. If this contract doesn't get done close to the end of the preseason, so you think Terry will demand a trade or play out the rest of his contract? Well, he could demand a trade all he wants, but the fact of the matter is, if they can't reach a deal with him, unless somebody's offering just the stupidest of stupid deals to the point where you just can't turn it down, a la the Grizzlies trading Desmond Bain and getting, essentially 3 first-round picks, you can't turn that down. 4 first-round picks. Guy, you can't turn that down. You got to take it. The Commanders aren't getting anything like that for Terry McLaurin. So I don't think him demanding a trade is going to change anything. Could it happen? Sure, he could demand a trade. I still am of the mindset that a deal's getting done. I haven't wavered one bit. I feel the deal is coming at some point. It just feels like it's taken a lot longer than any of us anticipated. But 33 to 34, that's probably on the high side. When this process first started, I was talking at 30. Then I quickly jumped to 33 because the DK is kind of where I still am. But ultimately, for this to work, I think 30 is the magic number. And I just don't know if Terry and his agent are there right now. So going to be an interesting situation to watch it play out. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lang Hughes writes, AP, you're going to get 6 more mil than Sutton and like it. That Sutton deal is wild because it gives the team a baseline of, hey, this is what a dude that's similar age to you is getting. And for Terry, you don't care about Sutton's age. You look at his production. You look at the trajectory of his career. You look at your, again, you can't fall into the trap of what Terry has done. You got to think about what Terry is going to do, what you project him to do. It's not like Terry's been a 1,300 yard receiver and you're expecting that to come down significantly. Terry's always been a 1,000-yard guy. So I don't see that falling off over the next 2 to 3 years. But again, not my call to make.
So you're going to take $6 million more than Sutton and like it. Period. We'll see if that Sutton deal sparks conversation and gets, some real movement within the two parties. But right now, doesn't feel that way. I'll tell you that much. Does not feel that way. So, with no more comments, I do want to quickly promote the Kings live from Crystal City Sports Pub on August the 24th. 5 p.m. is when the doors open. Show starts promptly at 5:45. I heard your jokes, okay? I heard your jokes about not starting on time. Whatever. We're going to start on time. Looking forward to meeting the Kings. Looking forward to meeting all of you. Again, I've never met the Kings in person. So that's going to be a first for me. And meeting a lot of you in person for the first time will be awesome. I know I met some of you at one of the watch parties, at a couple of watch parties last year. It was cool to meet up with some of y'all. It'd be even better to chop it up with y'all again as we talk about the season, preview the games, give you a prediction of the 53-man roster as well, toast to the season, and more. So much in store for the Kings that night. We're going to turn up, have a great time, and we want you to be there as well. So, if you're out there and you haven't done so, go ahead, get your tickets. I'm going to drop the link in the comment section of this live stream. I'm also going to put it in the comment section of the video, and I'm going to pin it to that comment section so that anyone that wants to go to that event will have the ability to do so. I'll be posting links and different things on social media as well. I'll be having some call to actions. So you guys stay tuned for that. But once again, Commander Kings will ride on August the 24th, the day after the final preseason game, as we chop it up, break down the season, give you a preview and a prediction for it. Also, 53-man roster projections. At that point, we'll be down home stretch with the rosters. I think we can nail it. And then we're going to have a toast to the season and more. Hopefully, you'll be in the building. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. So, with that said, let's get to a couple more comments. Voices of Martians. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Voices of Martians some love. Welcome them with open arms. Welcome to the squad. Voices of Martians. David Brown. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. What can Brown do for you? Let's see. I feel like Terry was on an island when I said what I said. He says, I feel like I was on an island when I said what I said about 30-year-old wide receivers, APY, but that Sutton deal makes sense. Terry should be around 26 to 28 million. That may be where the team is ultimately. That right there may be where the team is, and that is unfortunately not where Terry is. And if I were Terry, that nor should it be. I understand the age component, but my rebuttal to that, if I'm Terry, is I'm just coming off the best season of my career. The first time I was named an All-Pro in this league. Second in career, second in the league in touchdown receptions. I'm feeling great. I'm going into the prime of my career. You think I'm exiting the prime, or you think that I can't get much better than this? That's false. I got Jayden Daniels. I'm finna turn up. I got Deebo Samuel taking some pressure off of me. I'm finna turn up. I got at least another 3 to 4 excellent seasons in me. Not good, excellent, great. I just don't know. I think that's falling on deaf ears right now. And this Courtland Sutton deal makes it easier for them to turn up the I'm not hearing this, I'm not hearing this, I'm not hearing this noise. So, yeah, it's you know what, David? You weren't alone, but there were very few of you on that Terry should get less than, $27 million branch. I know you said 26 to 28, but split the difference, 27. There's not a lot of people that think Terry should get, 26, 27, $28 million. It's not a lot. Not for what he's meant to this organization, not for what some of the other guys. Like, I get Brandon Ayuk's younger, but do you think Brandon Ayuk's better than Terry? He got $30 million. Now, again, I understand that he's younger, and that makes a huge difference. But I got my money on Terry. So we'll see, David. I think you may be on to something, though. I think this ultimately may be one of those situations where Terry may have to compromise a lot more, and I don't know if he's willing to, and I don't know if he should. But anyway, I digress. Day 5 of training camp is officially in the books. I look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow. Day 6, second day of pads. See what tomorrow brings from a roster standpoint, who will or won't practice, et cetera, et cetera. Should be a good one tomorrow. I look forward to chopping it up with you, talking about training camp tomorrow for the Washington Commanders. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, and I shall return tomorrow. Now, if anything happens of note, you already know. You already know what it is. I'll be back. And who knows? I was going to wait until August to start the podcast back up, but who knows? I may jump in and do one tonight because that Christian Wilkins thing, I feel some type of way about it because I've always felt like Christian Wilkins had a little something on the side going on, but that's just me. So with this stuff coming out now, I definitely want to talk about it, but I don't know if I want to talk about it that bad. So I can wait. So we'll see. But in any event, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll be back with Training Camp Confidential tomorrow. Commanders hit the field again. Pads are back on again. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Peace. Get them tickets. Commanders Kings, August 24th, Crystal City Sports Pub. Be there.